How's it going, everyone? James Lynch here on my YouTube channel doing another preview of Contender Series. We got week 4 going down tomorrow night at the UFC Apex with a pretty solid offering as far as what we're going to be seeing tomorrow night on the show, on the event, I should say. We do have odds today, so I'll actually be having some odds to talk about, which is great. Glad to see the odds makers getting on top of that. Let's start first in the middleweight division. We've got Colin Huckbody taking on Bowen in the middleweight division. Right now, the odds makers have Colin Huckbody is the favorite at -165, Bowen plus 135. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I'll get into sort of the stats between both guys. Colin Huckbody, 7-2, 25 years old, 6'3", splits camp between training back in Minnesota and also training at Jackson Wink. He was at Jackson Wink for this camp. If you guys saw my interview with him, I have it on the Contender Series playlist. I interviewed him basically just a little bit after the fight was announced, so he was still in Minnesota at the time, but obviously getting some great work over at Jackson Wink, like I mentioned. He is 1 year younger than Bowen, and he's got a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. Huckbody's another case. I've talked about this before in the past. That is a fighter who's really turned things around in his career. I talked about that with Kenny Cross last week. Huckbody's the same way. He started his career 3-2. He's now gone 4-0 since then. He is the North Star Combat middleweight champion. I know that because I interviewed him for North Star. I'm doing some interviews for those guys, so he's looked really good in that promotion. I know they're very big on him, just speaking with people in the promotion. He's coming off back-to-back submission wins. His only losses are actually pretty quality losses. I mean, no one likes to lose, but they're two pretty good opponents. He lost to JP St. Louis, who's a Rufus Sport product, really talented guy in the regional scene, lost to him early in his career. And then he also lost to Bavon Lewis as well in LFA. And Lewis, as we know, is a mainstay in the UFC. He's actually got his next fight booked. So not bad losing to either of those guys. They actually, I think, train a bit together now at Jackson Wink, which is interesting. Although I see Lewis is no longer training there, but I'm guessing they did train a little bit in the past. Let's talk about Bowen here. 9-4 record, 26 years old, 6'1". They don't have his reach listed. And according to Tapology, trains at Family Combat and Fitness. I've never really heard of that gym before. But he's got a 7-fight win streak. Again, I always tell you guys this, look at the level of competition. The guy he fought in his last fight was 4-10. He defeated him by TKO in June, a guy by the name of Travis Foster. So not great competition there. He has back-to-back losses earlier in his career to Colin, the welterweight who's supposed to fight in the UFC this weekend, had to pull out due to undisclosed reasons. I don't know if they ever updated that, but lost to him there. But the key thing here, like I've told you guys, Bowen's only 4 of his 12 opponents have winning records. Now he's fought, I think, 13 opponents total, but he fought Colin Bourne back-to-back and lost both those fights. Now Bourne had a good record. I think he was 3-0 and then he went 4-0, obviously getting the 2 wins there. Just not really good competition, not like what Colin Huckbody's fought. And I think that does, pay off on the Contender Series. We've seen in certain cases where guys, they've had it easy on the regional scene, and then when they get that step up on the Contender Series, they don't look as good. So I'm going to go Colin Huckbody by submission in this fight. He's got a really good ground game. I think him training at Jackson Winks is such a good move for him, getting to, get those good bodies in the gym there. He's really hungry for this. He's a small town guy who's really, trying to make his mark and trying to, be the next fighter from Minnesota. There aren't too many of them, Maurice Green and, obviously, ages ago, Brock Lesnar, but, there's not too many guys. John Castaneda is another one who's, come from Minnesota to do big things. So Huckbody's got a lot sort of riding on this in terms of where he's coming from. And I just think, again, the experience, even though Bowen has more fights, I think Huckbody's fought better competition. So I'm going to go Colin Huckbody by submission to get it done in this fight. And I do think there is value with him at the current odds right now. All right, this to me is fight of the night. I can't wait for this matchup. I'm surprised this is not the main event, but we'll talk about that later. We've got Anthony Romero, the Canadian lightweight prospect, taking on Mike Breeden. And right now the odds makers have Anthony Romero as the favorite at -150, Mike Breeden plus 120. If you guys know, I've been very high on Anthony Romero in terms of his career. He's undefeated, 7-0, 23 years old, 5'11", splits time between Parabellum MMA and Niagara Top Team. He's got 3 stoppage victories, and his last fight was a 58-second knockout in Ohio Combat League in enemy territory against a 5-1 fighter by the name of Jacob Miller. So that was a really impressive win there. I thought that was going to get him in the UFC. Obviously not. They wanted to see one more, probably because of his, his age and obviously lack of experience there. So now he's going to fight on the Contender Series. And let's not forget, he was actually supposed to fight on Contender Series last year, but what promotion was he with? King of the Cage. You guys know that whole story with them keeping fighters away from getting opportunities, like how there was that other bantamweight that they tried to get on Contender Series, or I was in the UFC actually, Draco or whatever the guy's name was. They tried to get him in. King of the Cage said no way, and they did the same thing with Patchy Mix in Bellator. I don't know if you guys know, when Patchy was in King of the Cage, he was supposed to be on the Ultimate Fighter, and they wouldn't let him because they wouldn't let him out of his contract. So yeah, Romero's a guy that should have been there last year, but either way, really good record and really good good competition. I added up his opponents' records. So Anthony Romero's opponents have a combined 24-6 record. So this is what I'm talking about, guys. Like, it's important to have really solid competition on the regional scene if you can get it. I know not everyone can get it, but if you can, it pays dividends for sure, like we've seen here. Now for Breeden, he's 8-2, 31 years old, 5'10". So Romero 8 years younger, and has a slight height advantage in this fight over Molina, or for Breeden in this fight. As far as that goes, he trains at a Glory MMA, and actually, hold on a sec. I think I got that wrong here. Mike Breeden, let me just double check that. Wrote something down wrong in my notes. That's why I'm I did have that right. He trains at a Glory MMA and Fitness, and he is on a 3-fight win streak. He's coming off a big win over Brandon Jenkins, who's a pretty solid prospect on the regional scene. Won that by flying knee knockout in this fight. The odds, like I mentioned, are close in this one. Romero -150, Breeden +120. I got to go with the Canadian here, just to look a little bit more impressive. Fought tough competition. He's ready for this. And let's not forget, too, he trains with a really good camp as well at Parabellum. We saw Josh Hill last week in Bellator get that really solid win over Eric Perez. Romero gets to train with him. And, everyone I've talked to at the gym just says this kid's the real deal. I'm going to give a slight edge to Romero, but personally, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this one. Breeden's absolutely game as an opponent, and this is almost a UFC level fight in my opinion. So I'll take Romero either by decision or by knockout, but I think he's the real deal, and I think he gets the contract. I think Anthony Romero is going to get it done here. Let's move things along here to the lightweight division. We've got Alves. Rafael Alves taking on Alejandro Flores. Almost did a Freudian slip there. And right now, the odds makers have Alves as the underdog +100 and Flores as the favorite -130. I'll be honest, don't have a great read on this fight, just kind of going off the records here. Alves is 18-9, 26 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. So he's 1 year younger than his opponent. He trains at an MMA Masters. So Brazilian guy who came over, started to do most of his career in the States, training in Florida. He's on a 4-fight win streak and fought in April. He made his pro debut in 2007, which is interesting. So, a lot of fights on his resume for a guy that's only 26. So that's kind of interesting. And he fought UFC vet Wagner Rocha, as well as Thiago Trader. He's fought some decent competition as well along the way. Flores, he's 17-2, 29 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. So he's got a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's got 7 wins by stoppage, and he defeated Marco Antonio Epidio by decision at Combate 47. This guy's fought a ton in Combate, so he's one of their more notable fighters. And he also has a win over Bellator veteran Pablo Vizquea. If you remember, he fought a few times in Bellator. Like I said, don't have a great read on this fight, but I'll go Flores by decision. Just looks a little bit more polished as far as the two fighters go, and that reach advantage I think will pay off for him. So I'm going to take him by decision in this one. Main event, kind of a weird fight in the sense, and I'll get into that in a sec, but it's a middleweight matchup between Jonathan Paddy against Jamie Pickett. Paddy, 6-3 record, 29 years old, 6'1". He's coming off a submission win over Joseph Pfeiffer, who we saw in Dana White's Contender Series lose, week 2. He got injured in that fight and ended up losing. So he's got a win over him. He's fought tough guys. I talked about this. Really good competition here. Lost his pro debut to Ryan Spann, who's a UFC light heavyweight, and also lost to Puna Soriano at LFA 52 and Dana White Contender Series veteran Kalen Hill as well. So all of his losses are against guys that are pretty top notch as far as that goes. Jamie Pickett has also lost to Puna Soriano. If you remember, he lost to him by decision last year in Contender Series. Pickett is 10-4 record, 31 years old, 6'1" with an 80-inch reach. So they don't have Paddy's reach listed, but I would imagine that these two are going to be pretty similar in size. But Pickett's coming off a decision win over a guy who was 7-10 in his last fight at Next Level Fight Club. Now I know, again, you got to fight who you're given, but that's not great fighting a guy with a losing record. Like I mentioned, lost to Puna Soriano by decision last year in Contender Series. He's just out wrestled for the whole fight. And he also lost to Charles Byrd the year before that, or 2 years before that, I should say, on Contender Series, getting lost by submission. So third time for Jamie Pickett on Contender Series. We'll see how he does in this one. You know what? With a fight this close, both guys pretty similar records. Pickett's got a bit more experience, but physically very similar. Age is kind of similar, 29 to 31. Had some losses to some decent competition. I'm going to actually go with the underdog here. I think there's a slight advantage here for Paddy just because he's a little bit younger. And again, Pickett just for whatever reason hasn't put it together. Like even that last win he got over the 7-10 guy, it was a decision. He's not going out there and improving and making leaps and bounds as far as that goes. So Paddy's the underdog at +140. I'll take that. In a situation where the fight's so close, I like to favor the underdog underdog because I do see some value there as far as that goes. So I want to know what you guys think of these picks in the comment section below. Who are you picking? Let me know who you're picking, how you're picking them to win. If there's any cool bets you got going on, any parlays, love to hear that. Always like discussing Contender Series with you guys. Like I said, don't have a great read on this card as a whole, but did have some interviews there with Colin, Huckbody, and Anthony Romero. You can find that on the Contender Series playlist as well. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. DMs are open. You can always send me a message, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.